Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you could please take your seats, we're going to get started here. Just on that, well, it was on that blue couch. Do it. All righty. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. It's so great to see all of you here tonight. And also to let you know, there are several viewers online tonight as well, so welcome to you. On behalf of the Women's Health Collective Canada, thank you for being part of this Vital Talks. Before we begin tonight's program, we would like to acknowledge the land on which we live and work. I'm pleased to share a short video featuring voices from across the country, honoring the lands and communities where we live and work and gather. We felt it was, it would behoove us to have a special tribute given we work in the health space and we have many leaders and medical clinicians and nurses and practitioners across the country to hear the land acknowledgement from their voices. So, roll camera, please.
Greetings and welcome everyone. As co-Salish matriarch and elder, I wish to share a very, very warm welcome. We are standing here in the totem poles in Stanley Park in the heartland of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh nations, and we share a very warm welcome to each and every one of you across this nation they call Canada.
So greetings everyone, my name is Gasanahawe Sky Deer. Wolf Clan, coming from Ganawage, Ganyagahaga territory. We're located just outside of Montreal. We recognize Montreal Tiohtià:ke as being our traditional unceded territory, the gathering place of many nations.
Sego Zewagwego, Gawananola Yungyats, Anardaga, Akwizaslona, Dewisni. My name is Precious Words, and I come from the land where the partridge drums. My clan is a family of the snipe, and I'd like to just ask everyone to reflect upon the land that they come from.
Tanse, Tabitha Stonechild Nitsigasun, Egwane Heo Esquire Paipuad. Hi, my name is Tabitha Kimball. I'm a registered member of the Piapot First Nation, which is located in the traditional territories of Treaty 4. We are gathered today on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 4. These are the traditional lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Nakota Sioux, and Métis peoples, and a place where many other nations and Inuit peoples have also made their homes.
My name is Debbie Eisen. I work at the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center in Jabuktuk, Halifax. Jabuktuk is the territory of the Mi'kmaq people. In 1725, the Mi'kmaq signed treaties of peace and friendship with the settlers and the Mi'kmaq that said no land was surrendered, but the Mi'kmaq would help the settlers become accustomed to the land.
A land acknowledgement is a reflection of the individual, a reflection of your heart and your mind, a reflection of your spirit and that place that you come from, the clay and the earth that you're made from.
The land is not just the ground beneath our feet. It's a source of health and well-being. Our physical, emotional, spiritual, and community wellness is inseparable from the health of the land, the water, and all our relations. When the land is cared for, people and communities thrive. When it's harmed, so too is our collective health. Because of that, a land acknowledgement cannot be a routine opening line. When spoken only out of obligation, it risks becoming symbolic rather than meaningful. Its purpose is to remind us of our shared responsibilities, to honor the original caretakers, to uphold treaty rights, and to act through our research, our programs, and our daily decisions in ways that sustain the land and the people.
We have an attitude of gratitude for all of the elements of creation. Everything that we need for us to sustain ourselves, to take care of ourselves, the medicines, everything grows here in the natural world. So it's important for us to be mindful of that, to give thanks.
Understanding what the Mother Earth provides us is very important for us because without her providing us with sustainability by medicines, by being able to grow vegetables, by providing the water for us to sustain ourselves, we wouldn't be where we are today.
First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people are rooted in relationships with each other and to the land. And so we acknowledge the land that we come from and those sacred beings that existed on the land in great civilizations before our arrival.
As we advance our work in women's and children's health, may we carry these responsibilities with us to honor the lands we stand upon, to walk with Indigenous peoples as partners, and to ensure that our efforts contribute to a future of equity, respect, and collective well-being.
Thank you to all the beautiful people who work right across the nation, lifts up and amplifies the voices of women right across the nation in such a good and respectful way. And we want to share honor and thanks to each and every one who commits to this.
So I hope you found that a little bit more inspiring than reading off the page. I certainly did. The first time I saw that video, it brought tears to my eyes, and I think it really does justice and tribute and homage to the land on which we live and work. So thank you. Before we move into tonight's conversation, I'd also like to share just a short video about the Women's Health Collective Canada and the work we're doing to drive growth in this movement and to advance women's health research in Canada. But not only research, advocacy and systems change are all imperative too. Awareness and education is essential to driving change in this country around this critical topic. And so we'll roll video and then we'll get into the event.
And yet, the picture of our health remains incomplete. For too long, women have not felt heard or received the care they deserve. With our members and partners across Canada, we're working to positively change the course of women's health forever. Women's Health Collective Canada is the first and only initiative of its kind to build a national movement for women's health.
There are many conditions that women face that can take multiple years for a diagnosis. Investment in women's health research is one of the answers.
Tackling gaps in sex and gender-based health research requires systemic change at every level.
So the bottom line is we need a complete disruption in the medical system and in the scientific system in order to accommodate, prioritize, and support women's health and research.
When we prioritize women's health, we see improvements not only for individuals, but for families and entire communities.
By investing in the Women's Health Collective Canada, you're really investing in taking this research to the next level.
My research program focuses in the areas of menopause, reproductive health, and osteoporosis.
My research is largely focused on improving sexual health.
My research focuses on promoting health and well-being with age.
My research is focused on inequalities in cancer screening.
Our research is focused on how endometriosis causes pain.
A major component of my work today is focused on how we can strengthen the health system response to violence against women. we've been able to see the impact of our research on the daily lives of women in Canada and globally.
Since it was founded, our collective and our movement have grown. Today, WHCC brings resources, fundraising, and some of the brightest minds in science and healthcare together to address the gaps in women's health. I hope that research will translate into explanations that will help women not only cope with their symptoms, but can lead to early detection, early intervention, better diagnosis, possibly even prevention.
It's time to end health inequity and make women's health visible.
Join our movement.
Join our movement.
Rejoignez notre mouvement pour un avenir plus sain pour toutes les femmes.
Join our movement to create a healthier future for all women.
Fund the facts, join the movement.
Thank you. And now officially, I welcome you to Vital Talks. This is our third Vital Talks and arguably the most important, the health and wealth imperative. So tonight's conversation explores one of the most important opportunities facing our country and our economic future. So women represent 52% of the population in Canada now. We are 47% of the workforce, and by 2030, we're projected to own 50% of the wealth in this country. Those are some staggering facts, yet despite this economic influence and leadership, women's health remains underfunded and too often overlooked. The reality is simple. Without healthy women, Canada cannot reach its full potential. It cannot reach its full economic potential, and we cannot become the best of the G7 nations. Women's health is not only a healthcare issue, it's a workforce issue, a productivity issue, a leadership issue, and an economic imperative. That's why today's discussion matters. We have an opportunity to examine how investing in women's health can strengthen businesses, families, communities, and the future prosperity, not only for our country, but for the world. Vital Talks was created to make space for conversations like this. Conversations grounded in evidence, informed by lived experiences, and focused on action. Our goal is to bring credible information and influential voices together to help drive meaningful, systemic progress in women's health across Canada. I also want to recognize the importance of partnership in making conversations like this possible. When leaders across businesses, research, philanthropy, and the not-for-profit sector come together around a shared purpose, real change becomes possible. I'd like to thank our sponsors and our partners for tonight's event, Vichy Laboratories, Organon Canada, and Hologic Canada, as well as our organizational partners, Shoppers Foundation for Women's Health and Sun Life. And speaking of partnerships, we're especially pleased tonight to be joined by one of our collaborators on an important body of work, helping to reframe women's health not only as a health issue, but an economic and societal opportunity. Earlier this year, Women's Health Collective Canada partnered with McKinsey & Company and the McKinsey Health Institute on the Blueprint for Action. This is about closing the women's health gap in Canada, a landmark new publication that helped quantify both the cost of inaction, the enormous opportunity that exists when women's health is prioritized, and perhaps most importantly, the steps we need to take to close that gap. To help us explore some of those insights tonight, I'm pleased to welcome Louise Greco from McKinsey & Company, who will share with us this blueprint and the opportunity ahead of us. Louise Greco is a senior partner at McKinsey & Company and a leader in the firm's transformational practice. She brings deep experience across healthcare and consumer industries. She was the former president and managing director of Johnson & Johnson, and she is recognized for her work in business transformation, innovation, and organizational effectiveness. Please join me in welcoming our dear colleague and partner, Louise.
Thank you, Amy, and welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to see so many smiling faces here tonight. On behalf of the Women's Hello, Amy, I just saw you. Abby, I'm noticing Abby, I'm saying hello, and she's smiling now because I'm embarrassing her in the middle of the crowd. On behalf of the Women's Health Collective of Canada and of McKinsey Canada, it's a great pleasure to welcome you here for this conversation this evening. And the inspiration for our conversation is to invite you to consider women's health as an economic opportunity. So for just a moment, I'd like you to think about if I gave you the opportunity for 1 week, one more week of good health, where you were feeling your best, where you could do anything, where you felt like you were operating at full potential, what would you do at that time? 1 week. I'm noticing some glinty, sparkly eyes, which is devious, but 1 week could be very exciting. If we take a step back and we open the aperture and we say, well, what if we did that for Canada? What does that mean for Canada? If we gave Canadian women the opportunity for 1 additional week of good health every year, what would that create? There are 21 million Canadian women. 1 week for every one of them aged 0 to 110. Apparently, the oldest living woman in Canada currently is 110 years old. She lives in Ontario, although I am admittedly somewhat skeptical of our ability to validate supercentenarians, but she does live in Ontario. If we gave each of them the opportunity for 1 additional week of good health, it creates something really special for our country, and that's what we're going to talk about. So what I'll do over the next 10 to 15 minutes is share with you some facts and some data points and allow you to build your own fact base with regard to women's health. So let's walk through some of the numbers. The clicker. Thank you so much. Perfect. The average Canadian will live just north of 4,200 weeks. I don't know if that sounds like a little or a lot. This is something I used to say to my children when they were small. No vegetables was not an option, a little or a lot. A little or a lot, it's about 80 years. And here's where the differences start. If we look at the differences between women and men, women live about 4,300 weeks, just north of 4,300, and unfortunately men live about 4,100 weeks overall. Women live longer than men, and so some people would say, well, they live longer because they're healthier. But if we take that forward, before I go there, let me add, we have some mathy people in the room, I think. Mathy, if you're slightly mathy, raise your hand. For lots of people from financial services, don't be embarrassed about being mathy. Mathy's good. Thank you. Thank you for raising your hand for being mathy. The difference between women and men is about 5%. So for the mathy ones, a difference about 5%. It's not because women live longer. The difference is women actually live about 24% or spend 24% more time living with disability. And that is not living at their full potential, not living at their best health. So 5% difference in life expectancy, 24% difference in the quality of their life, if you will, or the disability of their life lived. When we collaborated with the World Economic Forum and created the leading research in women's health, we found that less than 5% of the gap was due to women's issues, if I can describe it that way. And people will often say sexual health, reproductive health, those things are women-related topics. And in fact, it's not true. If we look at the differences, or the leading causes, if you will, of illness in women, and leading causes of death, 3 of them are cancer, cardiovascular disease, and neurological disorders, mental and brain health, if you will. And so those 3 conditions actually drive the gap in disability. It's not because we live longer. It's not because we are pregnant, we go through menopause. We live in these areas of less good health. So let me start by saying We know that these illnesses affect both men and women, but we also know that they affect women differently, disproportionately, and uniquely. So let me give you some specific Canadian data. It's not intended to be jarring, but I'll be surprised if it's not. 45% of those affected by cancer are women. And I'm confident that it's touched people in this room, either directly or indirectly. Only 33% of clinical trials include women. So 45% of women impacted, only 33% of women in clinical trials. That's a 15 to 20% gap if you look at how it's studied versus what reality is. When we look at cardiovascular disease, a Canadian woman will die of heart disease every 20 minutes. So roughly from the time you arrived to the time that I started speaking, 2 women have died of cardiovascular disease. 20% more women than men die of heart failure. And if you're a woman and you present at Emerge with symptoms of a heart attack or myocardial infarct, you have an 80% risk of that being misdiagnosed because it presents differently, the signs are different, and you're turned away. When we look at mental health disorders and neurological disorders, 3 to 5 times, women are impacted 3 to 5 times more or die more of dementia and Parkinson's disease. In our collaboration with the McKinsey Health Institute and the World Economic Forum, we looked at more than 650 publications, 180 interventions, 60 diseases that represented more than 85% of all women's disability or women's unhealth, if you will. And we identified 3 root causes. It says backward and forward, but it's upside down, so every time I look at the clicker, it distracts me. I apologize. We identified 3 causes of the gap. The first one is data, and it would have been impossible to have an evening here with you tonight and not mention data. Data is in every single conversation we have. And so as it turns out, data here is the big red box. Data is really a lack of comprehensive, disaggregated, longitudinal data. And so we don't have data that tells us about those differences, how our interventions should be different, and how women might respond. There is an efficacy gap. Medicine, I'm a pharmacist by training, medicine has brought us many, many wonderful interventions, But medical research focuses, I apologize for the few of you who are here tonight, on male biology. And there's a default male model. That's a 70-kilogram man, that's a non-smoker, that's in every single clinical trial. And that's true for diagnosis, it's true for treatments, and that's how clinical trials are done. So efficacy is derived for cohorts that actually under-enroll women. So let's do a little test here, if you will. We also know that women respond differently. We know there are differences. How many people here have asthma, have a daughter, a sister, a mother with asthma? So we know, now you're afraid of what I'm going to say. Women on average experience slightly less efficacy and slightly more side effects when they use inhalers and puffers, when they're treated for asthma. Now, I'm a pharmacist. Yes, you should use your inhalers, but there are differences. There are real differences, and we can't identify what those are because we don't study them differently in clinical trials. If we look at cardiovascular disease, women have different outcomes when we use stents. And that's in part due to presentation, it's in part due to anatomy, it's in part due to service delivery and care pathways. And so there are real differences in these illnesses that are presenting with great frequency. There's an adoption gap. The adoption gap is the gray bar that you see there. This is a difficult one. We see really sizable differences for women that are driven by ethnicity, that are driven by socioeconomic status, that are driven by their geographical locations. We know women in rural communities and indigenous communities have less access to care, get less quality of care, and clearly suffer as a result. Now, every human is unique. Every one of you is special. Every hair on your head is special. So how these things show up varies. We can't anticipate what the patterns are going to be. We have this one role model, if you will, that's a 70-kilogram man who's otherwise healthy and non-smoker, but every single person is different. And so it makes solving this challenge or this opportunity, I'll look at it as an opportunity, difficult. But it gets more interesting when we ask about the interventions themselves. So if you look at what's causing or what interventions are the biggest contributor to this overall, in Canada, we see that a large part of the gap is due to innovation. And that's a limited pipeline of assets. It's a lack of data in how innovations work in women. It's lack of funding specifically for scientific research that's dedicated toward women. Now we know we need to talk about this in a way that's relevant for the audience that we're speaking to. And so we have some mathy people here. So if we look at this, I would say, what is the impact of this for Canada? It is a staggering $37 billion. By 2040, it is a $37 billion opportunity. I like to make things translatable, and so the comparison I'll draw for you is the agriculture sector, agriculture, forestry, fishing, hunting, is $37 billion. So if we addressed women's health, we create the equivalent in GDP benefit of an entire new sector. More than half of the women's health gap, and this is super relevant for everybody here, affects women during their working years. So the comment at the beginning is really important in that it's not because we're living longer and we have, not good health at the end of our lives. We're impacted during our working years. And that's why you see the sizable contribution to GDP. So if you look across the country, you're not going to be surprised to see about $20 billion of impact is Ontario and Quebec. But we also see in Saskatchewan and Alberta, there's a sizable impact there. There's a higher participation in the labor force, and so when people aren't working, it has a greater impact on GDP in those provinces. We've broken down 4 economic levers. The 2 bottom ones, I will say, are the most important, and that is fewer health conditions and fewer early deaths. We focus attention on the top half of this, which is participation and an increase in productivity. When women are healthier, we come back to the workforce, and we come back pretty productive. So we do a lot. Over half of the additional healthy life years accruing to women, I want to make sure I get this exactly right, and 75% of GDP gains materialize during working years. I'm going to say that one more time. Over half of the additional healthy life years accruing to women, just to women, and 75% of GDP gains are during women's working years. Now, 2 factoids that I think are interesting, funny but not funny. Women make up the majority of teachers, nurses, and caregivers, which contributes to everyone else's productivity. Factoid number 1. Factoid number 2, women approach philanthropy differently than men. They look at community collaboration, they look at long-term impacts, they look at systemic change. And very importantly, if you look at women's philanthropic contributions over the last 20 years, it has grown by 3 times. Men, 2 times in that same time frame. So the comments that Amy made at the very beginning are very relevant around, do we actually have the capacity and the ability to be able to solve this? We 100% do. We at McKinsey supported, as Amy referenced, the Women's Health Collective of Canada, a consortium of 5 hospital foundations and more, and came up with this research. We led this work. Now, we're not in the business of writing a report because we want to admire it. We're in the business of solving problems. We're in the business of creating opportunities. And the opportunity here is to engage a lot of stakeholders. We have people in this room, I know, from healthcare. We have people in this room from financial services. We have people in this room from startups. We have people in this room from all different walks of life. And all of you are important contributors, and all of you are bringing this community together. All of us will play a part in this. Big picture. Let me step back for a second. Canada is among the top economies for gender equality. Canada is the 9th largest economy globally. And Canada is the 5th worst women's health-related gap relative to GDP. We can do better. We can do better. We're a big economy. We've made massive advances from an equality perspective. We can do better from a healthcare perspective. In creating the blueprint for action, I'll go forward one more, we identified 4 priority pillars in the spirit of making Canada the leading nation of women's health. And the talent in this room is just a small sliver of that talent and capability. Tiny, tiny sliver. So the 4 pieces to focus on are knowing, caring, investing, and empowering. And everybody gives different ways. Everyone gives different ways. Some people give money, some people give time, some people give caring, some people provide support, some people provide research. Everybody gives in different ways. What I'm going to ask you to consider are how will you give on these dimensions. From a knowing perspective, we're in a time when we can make something, pardon me, we're in a time where we're going to move past where this 70-kilo man, the 70-kilo white man who's a non-smoker is going to be the comparator for all of us. We need sex disaggregated data. We need to design clinical trials for women. We need to demonstrate we care. We need to look at access. We need to look at sex and gender-based education. We need to invest. We have 21 million Canadian women. Women's research, anyone know how much women's research is? If you know the answer for sure, then you're not allowed to call it out. How much does women's research account for in research funding today? Any numbers? 5%? Anyone else? 15%? Anyone else? 6 to 7%. 6 to 7%. What condition raises the most money for women's health? Breast cancer. Breast cancer indeed does raise the most money for women's health. Did you know that fundraising for breast cancer is half of what it is for prostate cancer? It's half. So women are more likely to be affected and die from breast cancer, but we're half as likely to donate. When we do donate, we donate to women's health. And the last piece is we need to empower, and everyone in this room has an opportunity to play a part in that. This is around helping people in their health, in their career journeys, in realizing their full potential. That can be through philanthropy, that can be coaching and sponsorship, it can be through corporate environments, but everyone has the opportunity to lean on that one. Ladies and gentlemen, I started with what would you do if I could give you one more week of good health? Just one more week. Imagine what it could mean for our country if we did it for Canada. Imagine what it could mean for our communities. Imagine what it could mean for all of you here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Louisa. So some pretty provocative stats that I listen to on a daily basis and more. And yet I'm still not settled with them, and I'm still not completely flabbergasted by kind of what we face and what we hear within this sector. Such a huge opportunity, and there's lots of opportunity in this room. And I have to say, the panel that I'm about to present this has been a dream of mine for like 2 years. I was at Heart and Stroke Foundation and Women's Health a couple of years ago. I looked at cardiovascular health, and then I looked at all the intersectional health and areas of burden. And when I saw the opportunity to lead Women's Health Collective Canada, it was a dream opportunity, and I literally picked out people that I would love to speak with me on this topic. So I'm super happy to introduce the panel today. First off, I'll start with Helen Pagano. So Sun Life is one of our partners, but Helen is the Executive Vice President and Chief People and Culture Officer at Sun Life, where she leads the company's global people and culture strategy and employee experience. She brings more than 30 years of leadership experience across the financial services and natural resources sectors, and is a strong advocate for inclusive workforces and talent development. Thank you, Helen. I've had the pleasure of hearing Joanne Ryan speak before, and I'm super thrilled to have her here today as well. Joanne Ryan is the Vice President of Philanthropic Advisory Services at TD Wealth, where she helps clients integrate philanthropy into their financial and estate planning. She also leads TD's research on women in philanthropy and founded the Private Giving Foundation, Canada's first donor-advised fund created by a financial institution. Interesting fact I learned was that when I learned the fact that women are to inherit, over 50% of our own 50% of our country's wealth by 2030, 85% of women that inherit wealth fire their financial advisor and hire a new financial advisor for 2 reasons. One, because their financial advisor had previously always been talking to the male in the relationship, or 2, because women care more about making an impact in their community and the places that they invest their money. So Joanne's going to share some more powerful insights and facts on that, but those were 2 stats that I thought were quite interesting. Amy DeBow is the founder of Menovate, which helps organizations better support employees through menopause. After navigating her own experience during a demanding corporate career, she launched Menovate to help bring more informed and open conversations about menopause in the workplace. A round of applause for Amy. Amy was a fellow colleague of mine at Rogers. We spent a number of years there. It was a very corporate culture, and I can tell you that I don't think I heard the word menopause out of anybody's mouth the entire time I worked there, let alone supporting women in the workforce in terms of other health journeys that they may be on. It was a fantastic organization, but we're really starting to learn that menopause and other women's issues are not niche issues. We're a large percentage of the population, and women like Amy are just starting their own companies to change that. And I was very inspired by the journey she's been on, and super proud to have her here with us today. And lastly, Erin Griffiths. She is the Executive Vice President of Global Wealth Solutions at Scotiabank, where she oversees a broad portfolio across wealth management, private banking, and investment advisory services. What I love is she is also the executive sponsor of the Scotiabank Women Initiative, a strong advocate for inclusion and women's advancement. The Scotia Women Initiative is definitely an initiative to be proud of, and something that I really think is commendable, and I really aspire for many organizations to thrive and set up that kind of standard in their organization. And then, of course, once again, please welcome back Louisa Greco, Senior Partner at McKinsey. Thank you, ladies. My mic is working. Here we go. We're on. What a great looking group of ladies as well, I do have to say. Okay, so first question, ladies. Where do you see the economic cost of unmet women's health needs showing up? at work, but also more broadly in terms of participation, productivity, and the economy. And on the flip side, where have you seen real value created when those needs are better supported? I'm going to start with Helen on this one.
Hello. I don't know what I have to say that is any more terrific than what Louise already said. But I think, so I'll start in a different way. I think we know women face a fair number of challenges. We saw that culminating in $37 billion opportunity. But if you think about that, women go through kind of the motherhood penalty. You've stepped out of the workforce to have kids. You may have stepped away from promotions, etc. And then just when you get through that, you go through the menopause penalty. Your health is not great. You're not coming to work. Maybe you're stepping back from promotions. And then all of that is supported by the health gap. So even when you have anything else going on and going to see your practitioner, your condition may be under-researched, under-diagnosed, under-provided. And so if you think about solving that whole problem, and what that creates is the opportunity for women to stay in the workforce longer, contribute, not step away from promotions, not feel that they can't find the way to contribute, because that's also coupled with all of that time spent picking up, sort of usually more than the fair share of caregiving gaps, et cetera. So if you can solve all of that by saying better support to healthcare, better flexibility in the workplace, better accommodation for diagnosis of those conditions, you get the benefit of women thriving in their careers. They're thriving in their families, they're thriving in their communities, they're donating more. It's just such a win-win.
Absolutely. Amy, I'd love to hear your perspective on this as well.
Sure, thanks. So as I said, as you heard, this is a very personal journey for me. So I worked corporate and I suffered tremendously. I'm going to focus mostly on perimenopause and menopause. I really suffered at work and I had no idea what was happening to me. I got dismissed by many doctors, and it took years to figure out. And as Amy said, I never heard the word menopause at work. And so I'll share a little bit more stats specific to menopause, but the financial implication of women in work and menopause is enormous. So staggering stat is that 10% of women during menopause quit their job. So, and 20% consider quitting. And so that is really a staggering number of women at the height of when they can contribute to work. And now you've got to replace them. It's a really big financial implication. And so that's, attrition. There's also performance. So women going through menopause suffer significant performance and sick leave. So part of my perimenopause, I had not one, but 2 frozen shoulders. And I took significant sick leave for both of them and other days as well. And so if you can solve by giving some support, as we said, just supporting them through this, you save attrition, you save sick leave, and you save your culture, right? Because now women start feeling more included and they can talk about something that's going to affect every single woman in your workplace.
Well said, Amy. And I think, too, just to put this into economic terms, the cost of menopause on the Canadian economy is $3.5 billion a year. That is how much we drain the economy by losing women at the top of their career. So these are women who are, still have young kids at home, are trying to climb the ladder, get to VP, get to CEO, really, make an impact and a difference in their career. And then they also have aging parents, and they're working through, helping that generation, and they're really just carrying everything. And then you introduce a health issue like menopause, where you have mental health challenges, you have physical health challenges, you're tired. A hot flash isn't just getting hot. It's a minor panic attack. It really is. It's a minor panic attack. Like your heart beats and you sweat and you don't know what's going on and you're in the middle of a business presentation and you don't know if you can excuse yourself or get through it. But we do. We just women on and that's what happens. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to move on to the next question. As more women build, manage, and inherit wealth, that influence extends beyond their own lives. Where do you see the biggest opportunities in how that capital is invested, given, and prioritized, particularly when it comes to areas like women's health? So, Joanne, I'm going to start with you on that question.
Thank you. So I have the great job. I think I have the best job in the world of helping people give money away. There's other people at the bank that help them make it, thankfully. And we've been really leading the research on women and philanthropy because, as we heard earlier, we know and we've learned that women make investment decisions differently than men. And we knew that because we've also heard earlier today that women's life expectancy is greater than men. And so once the man would die, within a year, all of the business would leave because that advisor had not done a good job cultivating relationships with women. So over time, starting in 2014, we said we know that women make investment decisions differently than men. We suspected that they also make philanthropic decisions differently than men, so we conducted some research. There was research on the topic, but not Canadian. It was Australian, it was US, and from the UK. And so because women's life expectancy is greater than men, they often inherit twice. They inherit from a parent, and then they inherit again from a partner and a spouse. We still have some work to do to close the wage gap, but women are actually growing in entrepreneurship, and almost whenever a woman sets up a business, there's a social purpose to that business also embedded in the business. So women have the agency to really drive change. And so what we do is we have actually 4 pillars in private wealth management that we address. They are build net worth, protect what matters, implement tax-efficient strategies, and the 4th pillar is leave a legacy. And so for many of our clients, and many, that legacy is a charitable legacy. And so we encourage, first of all, women don't love the word philanthropy, and we're starting to, they think it's giving billions of dollars and having your name on a building. And philanthropy is really giving time, treasure, and talent for the public good. It is engaging with an organization and a cause that reflects your values. It's often more of a long-term commitment as opposed to just writing one check because someone's bugging you. But what women can do is become very strategic in terms of their giving. So we actually work with women to develop a philanthropic plan that reflects your values. We take them through exercises about what's important to you, what's important, what causes, what values, everything from what do you want to support your community. And when you develop a philanthropic plan, then you can be more strategic because there are 86,000 charities in Canada. They are all knocking on your door asking for money. You cannot support them all. And so if you start to be strategic with what really is important to you, you can give more, which means you can have greater impact. And so women are getting together, they're joining giving circles at charities, and we encourage women to really think strategically. And on the note about the advisor, I had somebody contact me literally 2 weeks ago. I didn't even know her, but she knew my name and said, I need your help, this is personal. My financial advisor at TD, who's a man, will not help me with my philanthropic goals, and I need you to find me someone else who will. And that's how important it is. He's losing business, he's losing a client, and because he wasn't interested in philanthropy, which women are. So, women need to incorporate it with their financial advisors, understand the tax benefits of giving. We know that tax incentives, even though they're very generous for charitable giving in Canada, are not the #1 reason why people give. People give because, well, we've heard lots of good reasons in terms of we need to invest in women's health, but we do educate our clients on the tax benefits of giving, like giving appreciated securities to eliminate the capital gain, because if you do give tax efficiently, once again, you can give more and you can have greater impact. So it's part of the conversation with your financial advisors, and women can drive change. And one more comment, Bev Wybrow, if anybody knows who she was CEO of Canadian Women's Foundation for many years, somebody I admire, and she would say, like, when you help a woman, there is a ripple effect, because they will then give back to the family and the community, and so it's just such a strong investment.
Thanks, Joanne. Erin, can you talk to us about the Scotia Women Initiative, sorry, and kind of, how you're seeing building high-performing teams and cultures around financial literacy, acuity, setting women up to be their most successful selves?
Sure. So great to see everyone this evening, and what a wonderful event this is in terms of what you're doing to educate everyone. The Scotiabank Women Initiative we started almost 8 years ago. It started in commercial banking for women-owned and women-led businesses, recognizing that women overall were not getting equal access to capital to fund their businesses. So this was about providing women entrepreneurs with better access to capital and mentorship. What the rest of the bank quickly realized was that there was a broader need for women overall. So our capital markets division, for example, set up board training for some of the women executives of the institutional clients they deal with. So you're interested in getting a board, what do you do? Our corporate secretary built an entire course for some of the women executives that we service as clients to help them get on boards as they want to look to grow their own careers. And then finally in wealth management, and similar to the population, about half of our clients are women, but the types of conversations they want to have are different. And so we trained our advisors on what are the types of conversations we want to have. They want to talk about legacy, they want to talk about their children, they want to talk about the challenges they're having with caregiving and all the various things they're juggling in their lives. And so collectively, I brought my piece of paper, not because I have brain fog from menopause, but because I don't want to mess up the stats, but they're important. So we've trained over 1,400 advisors. We've helped 49,000 women entrepreneurs. This is across businesses and geographies. And we've helped 7,000 women clients with life transitions as they've navigated all of these things and put 125 women through board training. And we've barely scratched the surface. There's still so much opportunity. We have an entire team set up. And it has, in wealth management specifically, we've seen our Net Promoter Score, which is how likely are you to refer a family member or friend, a very important measure for us in terms of success. We've seen our Net Promoter Score for our women clients go up over 10 points since we started this type of focus. So better engaging women clients is super important.
Fascinating. It is. It's a business model in its own. It's it's the growth of the economy. It's the growth of the population. And it just has so many positive impacts. We're going to turn our attention to a little bit around what actually works. And so this question is going to be directed at any one of you, because you all know the topic very well. You all experience it from different aspects. But what have you seen actually change outcomes for women in practice? What does good look like in policies, in leadership behaviors, financial guidance, access to care, and how support shows up day to day? And what of these can we do right now?
I'm happy to start.
Go for it.
So many things. I mean, the one thing that anybody can do, and it's free to start, is actually just start talking about it. Breaking down the stigma, bringing the conversation to the workplace. And when I started talking about this, people in other organizations said, how did you get this started? It's like, I just did it. And there was enough demand that we just kept doing it. And so the nice thing about that is you do see data-based evidence that says now that there's more conversation about it in the public domain, people are getting better care from their medical practitioners. So there's a win-win. That's the power of a voice. Things you can do in the organization is think about flexibility. Can people, if they need time off to care, for caregiving, or I didn't sleep well for the 1700th night in a row, can I work from home as opposed to work in the workplace? That's something you can do. You can look at your benefits. If you want to incur additional costs, you can add benefits, hormone replacement therapy, etc. You can look at underutilized benefits and allocate them to new benefits, you can provide some things for free. There's lots of information in the public domain that you can provide just to help people navigate through credible sources. There's information in public domain. I'll just pause there because there's lots, and it's proven to have in our organization, we're a health-driven, purpose-driven organization. The response in terms of attraction of talent, retention of talent, keeping people in the workplace, keeping them engaged is a proven case study. Just do it.
So yeah, I'll add, so definitely talking about it, no question. So I go in and talk to organizations about the topic of perimenopause and menopause. And for the most part, it is the first time they're hearing that conversation or that word. However, once I start talking, the outflow is enormous. And often when companies think, I always ask, how many people do you think are going to come? They'll say 20, 30, and hundreds show up. So the need is there. Women and men would like to talk about it. So I would go one step more, though, is educating. So it's not only talking about it and making it comfortable to talk about. So yeah, I love all those accommodations for sure, but also having a spokesperson, having an HR person who says, I'm willing to talk about this topic, but educating women to know what's coming. As I said, I had no idea what was happening to me. So one is educating, but HR primes and males, they want to know, they want to help. They have spouses, they have female employees, they have others in their lives that they want to know. And so they're often the ones that will come up to me after email and say, I need to know more about this. So it's about talking, it's about educating, it's about breaking the stigma. And there's a lot of things you can do to help someone go through the transition, and it can be as so simple as moving someone from a seat next to a window that's really hot. It can be as simple as saying, I now need notes, because yeah, that brain fog is real. And so it doesn't often, every woman is going to experience it very differently. And so just asking, what do you think will make that difference in your life? And let's see how we can accommodate you.
I think from a client perspective, it's also really important when we're in client-facing roles to educate our clients. And we've done a lot of work, and you talked a lot about longevity. So we've done quite a bit of work on people are living longer, but they're not necessarily living well, regardless of how much money they have. And that has implications on your financial well-being, how you do your financial plan, how you accumulate. Maybe you don't want to give your children money for a house because then you're going to end up living in their basement when you live too long and can't afford care. And so, it's the, so we're significantly underestimating the cost of care. We did a white paper on that. And people want to age in place. They want to age in their home. When they want to age in their home, it often falls to the woman, whether it's the daughter or the wife or whomever it might be, to provide that care. And then that has implications on their personal well-being, their physical health, their mental health. So we've done a lot of work around how do we help our clients better financial plan? How do we make sure they've got a proper estate plan and will in place? Powers of attorney, super important for both financial and health. And it's shocking, even high net worth clients, over 40% of them don't have that. And so people don't know what they need. So if you don't have that, that's the one thing I'd ask you to take away tonight is make sure you have your powers of attorney up to date. But then when you retire, well, I'm sorry, somebody said I'm not supposed to use the word retire earlier. When you move to that next phase of life, you gotta look after your physical health, your mental health, but also what's your sense of identity and purpose when you retire, especially when you've been a very successful professional, doctor, lawyer, entrepreneur, whatever it might be, what's your sense of identity? So how do we help find that purpose? We've developed a lot of content, resources, and partnerships to help address those topics. So I think it's our job as advisors across our institutions to do that more effectively.
The one thing I would add, Amy, is track the data. Right? So we talked about data. Again, you cannot have a conversation in 2026 without talking about data. So yes, talk about it often, make sure people understand, but look at your data. If nobody's using the services that are available to you, they either don't understand, they don't feel like they can access it, they don't feel like it's truly available to them without penalty. So look at your data and make adjustments where you need to as well.
Helen, I'm just going to
Helena, sorry, I'm just going to ask you, how do you help, the male leaders in organizations have more comfort in supporting, direct reports who are female and who need people to hear them and see them? How do you take that on?
It's a beautiful outcome. Just opening up this conversation around women's health and bringing it to the workplace is, I had male employees come up to me and say, that's really helpful. It explains some things going on at home, or it's going to help me manage my team, or I'm a young man and my young wife, we didn't know that this was coming. It's just very helpful to have access to information. And so what we take that also on is to say, it's leaders, like it's training for your leaders to be effective at leadership. How do you recognize when someone is not bringing their best to work? And how do you support them with it? It's just empathy and support. You're not going to diagnose their problem. You're not going to give them medical advice, but you are going to be an empathetic and supportive leader, not the one that says nothing going on here, or it's the M word. I can't ask them about a women's health topic. They might use the period word and I'll die. So it's just by just bringing the conversation to the workplace, normalized it, and they became real allies and advocates. And with a little bit of leader training, they did their effective role.
I think that's really interesting, and I think too, that translates into other sectors as well, like, teachers, for example, and I say this often, but, I'm here because I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I do not want her health journey to be what my health journey was. I don't want her career journey to be what mine was in dealing and managing with some of the things that I've managed. But, even teachers, being more sensitive to knowing that girls are going through menstruation and need to excuse themselves, or may be irrational, or may be hormonal, or what have you. I think, it starts at a very young age. Girls are menstruating at 9 years old now, and that hormonal journey starts at 9, and it goes from menstruation through to fertility to perimenopause to postmenopause and beyond, and it's an ongoing journey. And the scariest stat I heard the other day is, well, 2 of them, is that we really only have stable hormones for 10 years of our life, and that's the first 10 years of our life. So after 10, we're basically stuffed. And the second is that menopause is more than half of our life. More than half of our life. Because when you think about it, you start to have perimenopausal symptoms at 37, and then you're postmenopause, and that's a change in its own right. So, it is a piece of us that's, interlinked from hormones from the age of 9 until 99. Sorry, I just went on a tangent there. Joanne, talk to us about support with financial planning. What is going well? What is your research telling you? What are women learning from you? What can we learn more of from you?
So, and my lens is philanthropy on this. So, women do a lot more due diligence than men, and they do that in terms of hiring an investment advisor, as well as doing the due diligence on the charitable organization. So it actually takes longer to get a major gift from a woman. And what's really important for women is relationships. And so, in terms of relationships with other women, with charities, such as sitting here, women want to connect with other women donors. They want to connect with charities, with board members, with the staff at the charities. So many charities are setting up giving circles where women can get together and they can collaborate and they go on a learning journey. They may pool money together and vote on what they want to support. They want to get together. They want to connect. They want more than just the cocktail. They want to learn together and make decisions. The other thing women really like, and I think it's important, is collaboration. So with 86,000 charities in Canada, a lot of them are competing with each other. And we actually had one woman early in our research share that she thought if organization A worked with organization B, that 1 + 1 would equal 3. And she actually put a proposal together and said, here's a significant donation, figure out how to work together. So they love the collaboration. The whole Women's Health Collective is an amazing concept because you don't often see how a number of hospitals getting together and actually working collaboratively on research. Women absolutely love that. And today I was actually on a tour at CAMH, and they were talking about what they were doing with Women's College Hospital, what they were doing with UHN, and that's the way that it needs to be in order to get these gifts. So financial plans are important because we always say the most important thing for our clients is to make sure that they have enough to look after themselves and their family. And so when you do a financial plan, in many cases, it becomes apparent that they have more money than they're ever going to spend during their lifetime. So why not, figure out what that charitable legacy is going to look like? That's number one. And then, the other trend, they're not leaving it all to their kids. My favorite quote is Warren Buffett's, you want to leave your kids enough to do anything, but not too much to do nothing, or they start to brag about how successful their kids are. And then there's quite a few people out there that don't have children. And so philanthropy becomes that charitable legacy for them also. So we need to do the financial plan. And sometimes that's what it takes to see on paper that you have more money than you're going to spend, and you can actually start making a difference. And, women care, but they need to roll up their sleeves, usually, get their hands, wet or dirty. I mean, dealing with, speaking of menopause, a mother and daughter, and this was a whole family working together on philanthropy, and there were 3 kids, but only 1 daughter. And they're funding at Women's College Hospital. They're completely excited about it, a menopause app, because it's hard to get a doctor and a practitioner, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so this is going to be really interactive and really cool, and excited to launch it. And I'm excited for them. I'm going to share it across TD Bank also. So, but the financial plan is important because that's sort of your base, that you have enough or you have more than enough, and then what's that philanthropy going to look like?
Great, thank you. Just pivoting a little bit, workplaces are stepping up, but they can't solve everything. What are the opportunities beyond the workplace to really move us forward? Louise, I'm going to start with you on that one.
I think there are 2 big ones. One would be partnerships. Like a great example of that is the Women's Health Collective of Canada and this event tonight. And I don't say that because we're here together. I think partnerships are a wonderful opportunity to bring together different circles like a Venn diagram. And so where there are partnerships where we can make that happen, I think it's incredibly powerful. I think the second is just participation. And so I would say, I'll take an opportunity to say, for all of you who are interested in participating in the conversation tonight, thank you. You're not just here, you're helping us get started. And so I think those would be the 2 things I would say are partnerships and participation.
Great. Who wants to take this one next?
Why is everybody looking at me?
Aaron?
I think that's 100% a great answer on that one. And I would say also communication is a big one. Continuing to just communicate and talk about it, being transparent and authentic. Everybody's dealing with it. One of the things I didn't like about the pandemic was obviously being at home, but the interesting part about it was when you're on a Teams call and you see people's lives unfolding, like it's like you have a weird camera into their house of all the stuff they're juggling, and I think it taught people empathy. So I would really hope that people stay empathetic as the world continues to evolve, and just keep the conversation going and pay it forward to your peers. Like once you've come here tonight, tell your friends about it, and that's how we're going to get the story out more.
Anybody else have a thought? All right. Last question. Ladies, what's giving you hope, and where do you see opportunities for an audience like this to play a role in moving this agenda forward?
I'm most proud about donor advised funds. For those that don't know what a DAF is, it's a simple, easy alternative to establishing your own foundation. And TD, I brought the proposal to TD in 2003 to be the first financial institution, and we launched the Private Giving Foundation in October 2004. Very tough sell, because in 2003, 2004, philanthropy was a fluffy thing on the side. Today, nobody would argue with me about the importance of philanthropy for our high net worth clients. Our DAF minimum is only $10,000, so we've made it accessible to almost everybody. You don't need the millions that you would need to have your own private foundation. And it's the fastest growing vehicle in Canada. And we proudly, well, 2 milestones we passed. Last fall, our assets in our DAF surpassed $1.2 billion. But 2 weeks ago, we surpassed a different milestone, which is actually way more important, is that we can now say we have granted to charities over $1 billion since inception. Wow. And it has been proven through US research that if you are a donor to a charity and then you set up a DAF, your support to that charity will double and triple, because you're now putting structure around your giving. And I think that's, really, really hopeful that, donor advised funds, now we're being measured. We're talking about data. We actually have, on the information return that we file with CRA, we have to answer a whole bunch of questions on donor advised funds. And they're just like exploding and providing like huge opportunity to allow women and men to drive change very easily and simply.
That's exciting news. That's a huge amount of money. We will have to have a conversation after. Amy.
So I see a lot of hope in the topic of perimenopause and menopause. You see it on social media. We're starting to see celebrities talk about it. We have a long way to go in Canada, especially in the US, in work. And so I have hope, because I do start seeing companies starting and are interested in this conversation. I would love to see that grow into way more policies and way more benefit support for women. And in the UK, by 2027, they've implemented that every company over 250 has to have a menopause policy. And so I would love to see that come to North America as well, and start bringing legislation around it. And like you, I also have a daughter, and I hope that some of the things that I'm doing and we're doing really changes for them, that they don't have to be surprised by what's going on. But mostly what I would say is that it doesn't have to be a bad time. I changed everything in my lifestyle, and I would say that I feel so much better, healthier, stronger than I did in my 20s now. And so it really doesn't have to be an awful time. It can be such an amazing time in your life, and such an amazing time in your career. So it is so beneficial both for the employee and the employer to start talking about it, because it was 100% a win-win situation.
I would say, and it goes back to some of the earlier comments around the wealth transfer that's going to happen over the next few years. By the year 2030, if women are controlling half the wealth, less than half of women have a financial plan. So the importance of, and it's not just one and done, like the plan needs to be kept, it's a living, breathing document. We call it financial planning as opposed to a plan, because you should be updating it as your life changes. So taking the time, because women are time pressed, take the time to make sure you have a financial plan, that your will's in order, that you have your powers of attorney and everything else. So that allows you to focus on the other things. And so having that conversation with your advisor is really important.
Great. Helena.
What gives me hope is this momentum is starting. Like, this conversation is underway. Momentum has a flywheel effect. I can see that in the workplace. I started talking about women's health, and the gravitational pull to keep talking about it, the demand from employees. And it's just, and because then I can post on LinkedIn, I can talk to anybody in the world, and I can see the response. This is a real opportunity. It hits a real need. The gratitude to have this topic out in the open and to help people find their way through a health journey, thrive in their career. It's just so gratifying, and that gives me hope.
Do you want to take the last one, Louisa?
I do. I would like to thank first this wonderful, wonderful panel. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for being so generous. And thank you for speaking so authentically and so beautifully about your own experiences and what you're doing. It's really made this a wonderful evening, so thank you. I know you have other things you could be doing. Thank you for choosing to be here. Thank you to all of you for participating. Thank you to the men who tolerated my 70-kilo white non-smoking references over and over again. Thank you for supporting all of us. And for all the women who are here tonight, thank you for being wonderful friends. Thank you for being part of a community. Thank you for caring enough to have a conversation about looking at this opportunity for economic opportunity for women through women's health. We invite you, I implore you to participate in a way that is meaningful for you. It can be time, it can be friendship, it can be sponsorship, it can be money, it can be whatever you want it to be, but I invite you to be part of our solution. Thank you very much. We do have snacks here. Did you turn off the lights on purpose, Dana? We do have snacks here, and I also have flowers and a book for each of our panelists. Thank you very much before you go. Thank you.
We did want to open it up to the audience for questions. We do have some time. I mean, I would say, turning it back to what makes me hopeful, I would echo a lot of what Louisa just said. I'm hopeful because there are women like this who will share and impart their knowledge and their practices and what's working. And what makes me hopeful is that there are changes being made across philanthropy, across financial investment, across people and culture, across all aspects of what we've been talking about tonight. And it's the change that's needed. And I think, you know, having the data that McKinsey shared tonight has been unlocking opportunities for Women's Health Collective Canada as well to talk to the government about getting the funding right. The stat that we shared earlier, 7% of health research funding goes to women's health. And if you take that oncology out of that, it's only 3%. And that needs to change. And, you know, I say this often, it's a shame that we need to quantify women's health and an economic opportunity, but seize the moment, seize the crisis, and leverage the opportunity to build Canada strong for Canada's women, and show that, you know, for this government, having healthy women equals the best of the G7 nations. We are ranked number 74 in the world for women's health. It's a staggering fact, but it's a huge nation-building opportunity. There's only 3 countries in the world right now that have a women's health strategy. That's Australia, the EU, and the Scandinavian countries. We're working with the government right now to pass a women's health framework that would be a standing legislative bill at the government level that would withstand any leadership changes, and Canada would be the first country in the world to have a national women's health framework. We just saw some positive progress in that happening. It's moving through its second debate in the Senate and is actually going to move to Parliament in September, which means that the chances are it's really going to get adopted, and this education and awareness is going to mobilize into change and funding and growth for women across the country and across the globe. So thank you for listening to this talk tonight. Before we hand out flowers, I would like to open the floor for any questions you may have.
No, we do have one from our online audience. I will ask it on their behalf. So what can allies and advocates of women do to support the women in our lives on their health and professional journey?
I'll start with that one. Get informed as much as you can, and if you can't be informed, be empathetic, because you don't have to solve the problem, you don't have to diagnose it, but be supportive. And just that, it's surprising. And we heard examples of women just being dismissed about their health issues. It's nothing, it's fine. I think just being open to listen and empathetic, and then be informed as much as you can.
Thank you.
Great panel. Thank you so much. My question, I think, might be for Joanne, but maybe for other panelists as well. When it comes to thinking about where one would invest or offer their philanthropic decisions, are we educating women on looking at health as a key pillar in that space? Just a question, curious.
So definitely, as I said, we work with our clients to develop a philanthropic plan that reflects their values. So we don't dictate what women should support, but we do go through a pretty extensive exercise where here's about 50 values. If you have to choose your top 10, what would they be? If you had to choose your top 3, what would they be? And then choose your cause and start to really travel along that journey to determine what your potential options are. And so, I talked about the Menopause Project, where it became very apparent that this mother and daughter were interested in funding women's health. And so we went and met with our friends here at Women's College Hospital, did tours, did discussions, went to events where we heard different pitches, and they ended up on menopause. So it is a journey, but it is something that, philanthropic advisors will actually work with clients in order to help them to determine where they want to fund. And I guess you don't know what you don't know. And so that's why these events are great, because we take them on site tours, we take them to events, we host a lot of women in philanthropy events ourselves, where we'll have philanthropists who support all kinds of different causes share their journey, and that may resonate with somebody. So I would say we just continue to educate so that the client/donor can make very, very informed decisions.
Thanks, Daniel. So flowers are standing between us and the bar. So thank you again, and we will hand them out.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. There are some refreshments here. Please help yourselves. You're welcome to stay and mingle. Thank you for joining us.